Hi everyone, it's Wednesday Warriors, and it's me, Arielle. And this week I'm going to be talking about something that's very specific, but doesn't necessarily involve eating disorders. I'm going to be talking about how we can like or admire a quality in someone else without it turning into a negative thing about ourselves. For example, not internalizing the goodness of something else or someone else and turning it into badness when it's inside of us. Dealing with the nagging thoughts of inadequacy when appreciating something great about someone else. It happens, right? Especially if you're a perfectionist, especially if you have some struggles with self-love. And I'm not even going to be talking about complimenting ourselves, because that will come later. First, we need to figure out how to stop that inadequacy from forming, from being a problem, and from festering inside and growing into something really big from a little seed. And it's sad, really, because that little seed comes from admiring something great about somebody else, probably someone we love, probably someone who's worthy of our admiration. One of the things I say to people a lot in regards to body image or self-love or positive attributes, things like that, is if you wouldn't say something to your best friend or to any friend, don't say it to yourself. So if you admire a great quality in someone else and you're happy about it, and then your brain just twists it around real quickly, and all of a sudden that makes you feel like less of a person, you're not as good as that person, don't say, hey, you're not as good as that person. You wouldn't say that to your best friend. You wouldn't say, you're not as good as she is. You're not as good as he is. You would never say that to somebody else. The other thing you want to be aware of is judgment, because when you're appreciating and admiring good qualities in other people, you're not being judgmental. You're being very positive, and you're able to recognize really good traits in someone else. So you have it in your head that you are not a judgmental person because you're able to find good qualities in other people. But that's not necessarily the case, because you're still judgmental to yourself, and you count. So if you're judging yourself because you feel that you don't measure up to someone else, that's judgment. I did a video in the past about comparisons to other people, so I'll direct you to that video. I talk a lot about especially physical comparisons, but comparisons of all kinds. And it is a really hard thing, because I think just naturally, being human, we are competitive and we do compare. And because we are observant, we observe things in other people and then internalize it. But instead of noticing things about other people that are good and internalizing it for bad, we can internalize it for good and say, I think I'll strive to be like that person because I really admire that quality. I really admire that trait. And instead of berating yourself for not being good enough, I think you can agree that we've had enough people in our lives who have told us that we aren't good enough or that something's wrong with us, even if the media or society at large is that entity that's telling us that somehow we're not good enough. So why be another voice for evil when you can be a voice for good? I have this quote hanging up on my door at work that I really like. It says, "Stop judging, start loving." And that starts with you. It's great to adopt that and use it when you are seeing and meeting and talking to other people, but it has to begin with you. And if it doesn't begin with you, then all of that non-judgment and all of that love is just a little bit fake. And it's okay if you're not there yet. You can get there. This is a pretty difficult thing. A lot of people have trouble with this. And as I said at the beginning of this video, it doesn't have anything to do with eating disorders. Now, eating disorders can make this issue worse. Eating disorders can complicate things, but eating disorders complicate everything. I did a video a couple of years ago about high expectations, and specifically high expectations we have for ourselves. I think many people with eating disorders, and many people in general, have very high standards for themselves, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing when we think that anything that doesn't measure up to those standards is somehow a failure. And we get down on ourselves, and we start to hate ourselves, or at the very least, we don't like ourselves. And that's really no way to live, because you're dampening yourself, you're holding yourself down, you're keeping yourself in this sort of dark place. You want to cheer yourself on. You don't want to put yourself down. You don't want to keep yourself down. A big part of a perfectionist attitude and the attitude of comparing yourself to other people and internalizing it for bad instead of for good is a lot to do with all or nothing thinking. And I'm going to be talking about that in a later video in this 4-week rotation. And this is the first week. This is just week 1. So we have 3 more really good weeks for you. And they all do relate somehow. And I really hope that you can get some benefits from them. It takes a lot of effort to turn something positive into something negative. And that's essentially what you're doing when you meet someone or know someone or see someone who has something that you don't have or who is something that you are not yet. And you admire that quality so much, and then you take it inside and you turn it into something negative towards yourself. You're taking such a great, wonderful, fantastic thing, and you're taking it apart and you're building it again, putting it back together to be bad. Don't waste your own time. Don't waste your own energy. Don't hurt yourself. Be kind to yourself. Kindness is huge. Kindness is a beautiful, wonderful thing, and it shouldn't be underestimated, but it also shouldn't be forgotten. Don't forget to practice kindness on you. A lot of this is about retraining your thinking, which is a lot easier said than done, I know, but it can be done. It is possible, and it's so completely worth it when you have been able to change a bad habit. And I talked about this in my comparisons video as well, so I won't go into it in depth. But for example, if you know someone who you admire who has very positive qualities, and you like these qualities, and then you feel inadequate next to them because of this, you can stop yourself in the midst of that thinking. So you see someone, you think, wow, she's really great. I love that she does this, and whatever the thing is. Just as you're starting to feel negative about yourself, stop yourself. It might have already started. You might have already started that negative thinking. You might have already started to feel bad, but you can say, wait, no, I don't want to do this. That's what Arielle was talking about when she was talking about comparisons and she was talking about feeling inadequate. This isn't what I want to do. Maybe I'll be able to do that one day. Maybe I'll be able to be like that one day. And even if I don't, I'm good enough just the way I am. I'm great. And it might feel a little forced at first, the first few times. It might feel a little phony, but you're still breaking that cycle. You're stopping that thinking. You're not letting it continue. And even if it does continue afterwards, you noticed it. You became aware of it. You stopped in the middle of it. And even if you let yourself continue on that negative path, you recognize that this is what I'm talking about. And that's where breaking bad habits begins. Believe you can do this. Believe that you're good enough. I'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.